Not enough techincal skills? Okay. Wasn't sure where to post this. First-time poster, long-time lurker. A little background. My father never properly learned to read and write. He came from a dysfunctional home. But that's another story. He was, however, very good at fixing cars. He worked at a junkyard since before I was born. I'll call this junkyard A. A lot of times he would offer advice or even fix the cars of the customers on his own time as a side hustle. Another thing about my dad is he knew everybody. Anywhere we went, people would always stop him and speak to him, mostly asking about a problem they are having with their cars. It didn't matter where we went, even on vacation across the country, he ran into people he knew. The junkyard he worked at was originally owned by two brothers. They were good bosses and he made a decent wage and had very good health insurance. They made good business there and my father was the senior sales specialist. Business was so good they bought a new location and built a new building and moved there. A few years later the business was sold to a guy named Dave. Dave was alright, although we lost the health insurance. He stayed there for, I'd say, 8 or 9 more years. One day out of the blue Dave fires my dad and said it was because he didn't have enough technical skills. He couldn't hardly read or write, but he could use the computer one-handed to search the system for parts while on the phone with a customer. He and 2 or 3 other guys would be in the front to help customers, and my dad's line would have 2 or 3 people waiting especially for him and would refuse to be waited on by someone else. So he came home and filed for unemployment. He stayed home for maybe 3 weeks and was offered a job at another junkyard that was located between the city we lived and the next city over. Now comes the malicious compliance. Since my father was so well liked and everyone knew he got a raw deal from junkyard A, they also switched businesses. All his longtime customers and friends now frequented junkyard B. Many used car dealerships had deals with my father for the junk cars they sold for parts or parts they needed for fixing their used cars. All these businesses also switched junkyards and followed my dad to junkyard B. This was a devastating hit to junkyard A's business. So bad, in fact, they ended up selling the business to the owners of junkyard B. As soon as the sale was finished, my dad was sent back to junkyard A, where he worked for the rest of his life. He actually died in the junkyard. Massive heart attack. The funeral was so full of people there was not enough room for everyone in the funeral home. His funeral procession. The line of cars that drive uninterrupted from the funeral home to the cemetery was over an hour long due to so many cars. My mom went to buy the plot next to his a few days after the funeral, and the lady working there said she had been working there for over 40 years and it was one of the largest group gathered for a funeral she had ever seen. He may not have been able to read or write very well, but he knew cars and he knew people. A lot of people. What a beautiful story. It amazes me how one person can touch so many lives. Your dad sounds amazing. He apparently had some people skills though. I am glad you have fond, loving memories of your dad. What a lovely tribute to your father. He was clearly a good man and your love for him shines through. Sounds like he was able to salvage his dignity from a rough position. Your dad was a badass. Finally, a happy ending. Thumbs up. Bless your beautiful father. Love the story. I'm sorry for your loss. Not sure where the malicious compliance is. Although I guess he didn't argue against being let go and did have the social skills where his technical ones lacked. Did his new job provide health insurance? I'm so sorry for your loss. What a wonderful story about a truly gifted man. Thank you for sharing this story. Your dad leveraged his knowledge, which just epitomizes the point that wisdom doesn't come from books. Your dad sounds like he was a great guy. Too bad there aren't more like him. What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. I'm sorry. I couldn't read that wall of text. In hope you find someone who did and satisfied your claim.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.